One of the biggest complaints in recent months regarding Battlefield 5 has been communication, or the lack of. Details of the game, breakdowns on new features, developer interviews, it's all been very thin on the ground. You have to admit though that recently DICE and EA have stepped up massively and really improved the communication aspect. Recent developer videos have been a fantastic and frank open source of information, and that's been really great to see. Now though, we've got an actual roadmap in front of us of what information we can expect and when to expect it. DICE also very recently revealed that the game will have 2 years full of free content post-release. The Tides of War is planned to span for exactly 2 years. Now then, in September, we've already had one developer video with UX designer Natalie Eck, franchise director Daniel Berlin, and multiplayer producer David Serland. It was a great video with tons of information. Maybe it went on a bit too long for most people at 50 minutes, but more recently we had another one which went on for about 20, which was a lot more concise, and today we've just had a massive blog post covering the classes and combat roles that we can expect in BF5 when the game launches. So I'm going to go into those in a bit more detail in just a second. So in October we're going to get more information on the maps of BF5. We already know that 8 maps will be in the game at launch, and we've had a few teases of them here and there, but that's about it. More detail on the maps themselves and their historical relevance is coming. Also in October, we're going to hear more about weapons and vehicles. So details about how you will upgrade and customize them, as well as more details about what vehicles and weapons you can expect to get your hands on. War Stories is another area that will be touched on in October, with very little detailed information so far about the single player experience. I wonder why they've kept it so quiet. Maybe they've realised that most Battlefield players don't really care much for the single player experience. Tides of War is next, and that is a big one because that's the live service that we're getting with BF5, so more detail will be given on what that entails. Like I said, we know it's 2 years now, but we'll also find out what exactly is coming in terms of content drops and timed events. And I hope you all haven't forgotten about co-op, or combined arms as they're calling it, because we are also going to be getting some detail on that too. More details on how it's going to work, and more importantly, when we're going to be able to play it. Last of all, and arguably the big one, Firestorm Battle Royale. At some point in October, DICE are going to be taking the lid off Firestorm, the upcoming BR mode. I'm not sure what they're going to reveal, but I'm sure it will be very interesting to see what Criterion have been up to. I hope that they just release some raw gameplay of it and let people see a full round or something like that. That would be great. And that's all we're going to get for October. A lot of information in the build up to release, and in November before release we'll also get some more info on Grand Operations. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that we had a lot of new details about classes and combat roles in the blog today, and thanks to that blog we've got a nice bit of info and detail on each class, so we're going to take a look at that now, starting with the Assault class. Of course, the core of the Assault class we already know about. This is the class that's best equipped to take out vehicles, and to do so you're going to be given gadgets which are fit for purpose, like Dynamite and the Panzerfaust being 2 things that will help you with that task. And on top of that, Assault has weapons capable of being strong against infantry too. You'll get assault rifles and semi-auto rifles, and to start with you get the rifle grenade launcher and the sticky dynamite. One thing we haven't yet seen though for the Assault class are the combat roles, and these are tied to individual classes, and the idea is that you pick a class and then a combat role within that class that best suits your playstyle. Each class gets 2 combat roles at launch, and these will be expanded upon using the live Tides of War service. One combat role will be equipped as default and the other unlocked by playing the game. And for Assault, the light infantry combat role is the default starting option, and this comes with a few traits. Interesting. One of those is Scavenger, and that will allow you to find more ammo on defeated enemies and fallen comrades. Alongside that, you'll have Battle Hardened, which regenerates a higher amount of health than other combat roles. So this feels like a good combat role for players who like to play quite aggressive. You're going to find more ammo and you're going to regen more health when you get shot. Playing as Assault, then you'll unlock the Tank Buster combat role, and as you can imagine, this one is set up to make you more valuable at taking out vehicles. Before we get onto the traits of the Tank Buster, it's worth noting that if you destroy a spotted tank, you will gain 1 extra requisition point that will help you call in squad reinforcements, like the V1 rocket for example. When it comes to the traits of the Tank Buster, you get the following. Tank Painter, which means that any vehicle you damage becomes spotted, and not just for you or your squad, but for the entire team, just by damaging it. Maybe a bit too much, we'll see. Also Tank Scrapper, which means that vehicles you destroy yield extra requisition points, so like I mentioned earlier, these are used to call in squad reinforcements. So out of those two, the basic combat role seems better for players who want to focus on infantry, although you have to say that the role of the Assault is to combat vehicles, but that combat role here doesn't really aid in taking out vehicles, it simply gives you better rewards for damaging and destroying them. So the next class, Medic. It's pretty obvious what the overall role of the medic is, to heal and revive people. Revives and squad revives have been made snappier since the first alpha, and so medics can revive people much easier than they previously could. They still have an element of risk, mind you, but that's part of the game. Medics come equipped with SMGs here, and that's the only weapon type that they'll have available to them. As default, they'll also get the medical pouch and the smoke grenade launcher as their gadgets. You might be wondering where the revive syringe is. Well, don't worry, in BF5 all medics have the syringe by default now. It no longer takes up a gadget slot. That's a great change in my opinion. No excuse for a medic to not revive you. Okay, so what about combat roles for the medic? Well, the default one is called Field Medic. This is the one that is unlocked by default, and it gives you 2 traits. The first is called Healer. This gives you additional requisition points when you supply medical pouches to teammates. It also gives you another trait called Swift Effort, which allows you to sprint faster when calling out to a downed friendly soldier. So that's when you tag them, or you press Q to say that you're coming to revive them. I quite like that trait, that's an interesting one. And the second combat role is called Combat Medic, and this one needs to be unlocked by playing as Medic. The 2 traits for Combat Medic are Melee Expert and Emergency Retreat. Emergency Retreat gives you faster sprint when at critical health, and Melee Expert means that all of your melee attacks automatically take down enemies. Now, it's a bit vague, but I'm guessing that means from all angles rather than just a rear takedown. Although I'd prefer it if the only way you could do a takedown was from behind. Moving on to Recon. Recon has been changed quite a bit from BF1. The sweet spot is gone, weapons are harder to use, it's a bit of a difference, but it seemed that players were quick to adapt during the beta. Weapon upgrades help out some of the snipers too when it comes to bullet speed. Snipers of course get bolt action rifles as well as self-loading rifles, and their starter gadgets are the spotting scope and the Betty bomb. I'm not sure how many players were utilising the spotting scope during the beta, but it's very good and it's one of the only ways in BF5 to get a hard 3D spot on a player. The default combat role for sniper is called, wait for it, Sniper. It gives you a trait called Steady Hands, which lets you steady your rifle when aiming down the sights for longer, and it also grants you the trait called Expert Marksman, which means your steady duration is partially replenished for each headshot that you get. So this will definitely be a good combat role for players who are good at nailing those headshots consistently, rewarding skill. The second combat role is called Pathfinder, and this one has some really interesting traits, arguably one of the most interesting so far I'd say. Advanced Scouting lets you spawn on any squad leader on the team, what? And on any active spawn beacon, regardless of what squad you're in. Now that is extremely powerful. The second trait is called Vanguard, and this gives you extra requisition points when someone spawns on your spawn beacon. If I've read that correctly, then that's going to give a lot of maneuverability to the scout class, and I wonder if they've done that to try and encourage scouts to play around the map more and play the objective rather than just standing back on a hill somewhere. You can't really do that though as much anymore because of attrition. And last but not least, we've got support. In BF5, the support class has had an interesting role. Of course, they can repair vehicles, and just like the medic syringe is given by default, it's the same for the repair tool on support. They can also build fortifications much faster than other classes and build offensive options too. There's a few defensive things they can build too that other classes can't, and I think they're the only class that can build things like ladders and bridges. And support have some really strong weapons now too. By default they've got the ammo pouch and the anti-tank mine, and they can use the light machine guns and medium machine guns. The base combat role here is called Engineer. This gives you the traits Vehicle Fixer and Heavy Weapons Expert. Vehicle Fixer lets you repair and build fortifications faster than any other combat role, so you would definitely use this if repairing and playing defensively is your cup of tea. And Heavy Weapons Expert lets you fire static weapons and mounted vehicle weapons for longer before they overheat. The second combat role that you'll need to unlock is called Machine Gunner, and this lets you have increased suppression with a trait called Bullet Storm. Remember though, suppression is only visual in this game, and it will automatically spot enemies when you suppress them with a trait called Focused Fire. Now, wrapping things up, not an awful lot has been said about combat roles just yet. Of course, we did get to see the support combat role in the beta, but there are definitely some interesting ones in there, and I'm interested to see what you guys think about this. There are some cool traits in there, some that maybe are a bit questionable. But what do you guys think about this, and what could DICE come up with to add down the line? But the information drop that we got today really shows how it should have been done months ago. This information was key, and I think it should have been revealed in the past, but whatever, it's here now, we're getting it, and I think DICE are currently doing a good job of giving us regular tasters and information about the game. With that said, that's all for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.